How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're going to be redesigning a couple of popular logos, and this is kind of going to be like a UK version of that. So with that being said, the first logo that we're going to redesign is for a tea company called Yorkshire Tea. Big up Yorkshire Tea. And the second one we're also going to do is for a coffee company called Costa Coffee. So if you guys are from the UK, then you're definitely going to know both of these brands, but if you're not from the UK, then you may not know either. So apologies for that, but they're the two that I'm going to go for today. But if you guys want to see me redesign logos for more sort of global brands, then let me know in the comments and I'm definitely down to do that. But in any case, I'll give you guys a quick rundown now of both brands if you don't know them. So Yorkshire Tea is essentially a traditional black tea company from the north of England. I'm from Yorkshire, so I have a massive bias towards Yorkshire Tea. There is no other tea company in my opinion. I've been drinking the stuff since I was really little in a baby bottle. So that's Yorkshire Tea, and Costa Coffee is basically like Starbucks, I suppose. It's another coffee chain company or a franchise, and they are massive in the UK. They've got thousands of stores up and across the UK. So yeah, they're the two that I'm going to go for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. We're going to start with Yorkshire Tea, so let's get right into it. Okay, just a quick one before we get into the design itself. I should probably apologise up front right now because I forgot to actually record my screen up to this point, even though I'm making a video, so that's not really ideal, is it? Obviously, I've not done a whole lot, so I managed to actually spot it pretty early on, so I'd not done like the full design and had to go back and do it again and record it. So yeah, so this is what we're up to so far. Now my idea is to kind of get this into a badge shape or something near that. I want to kind of stick to the original vibe of the current logo in the sense of the layout and sort of like the symmetrical nature of it. And I've been really inspired by like vintage badge logos recently, so I want to kind of bring that in as well. But the thing that I want to do is kind of like obviously modernize it for one, because it is quite dated, I feel. Make it a bit more versatile, because Yorkshire Tea use their main logo on literally everything. I don't believe they have like a submark or a secondary logo or anything like that. So that's not really ideal. So I want to create a secondary logo as well for them that's kind of like a stripped back version of the main logo. So yeah, that's the kind of vibe we're going for. Obviously, we'll just see how it goes. But yeah, that's what we're up to so far. Let's go. So I've got this badge shape to work with now, so I'm going to go ahead and start typing out some of these sub-headlines that Yorkshire Tea use or have used in the past. So they've got a fair few, to be honest, and a fair few they have used before, so it really depends on what works visually. You know, I don't want something that's too long that's not going to fit on the badge, so I'm going to have to make really small. Initially, I really like Let's Have a Proper Brew. I think that's not too long, and it's something that they still use today. So I'm just going to use this badge shape now to create this circle, just by using a offset path. Just so I can put the since date on it. I want it to sort of arc around the circle shape. So there is a fair bit of space to play with on this badge. It is a bit of an awkward sort of shape to play with, I suppose, but I want to make sure that I'm using the space quite effectively. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using the shape of the circle to create this sort of like offset path, just so I can put the since date on it. And as far as logos go, badge logos seem to be a bit more text heavy or type heavy, which I quite like myself. And this one isn't going to be any different, but I do want to add some graphical element in it just to break it up a little bit. But before I add any graphical element onto this, I need to make sure that I've got all sort of the text on here, just so that I know the amount of space that I've got to work with when it comes to actually putting some sort of graphic on it or some sort of illustration on it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first, and then I'll know how much space that I've got left to work with. And a good tip here is that if you are going to be using just the one font, then it's good to sort of mix up the variations of the weight, especially if it's going to be sort of a lot of text around each other. So obviously, like I said, one thing you can do is vary the weight of the font, and the general rule really is to have it so if you're using like the bold variation of a font, you drop it down by two weight variations or two weight categories. So if you're using a bold font, and then it goes sort of like semi-bold and then regular, then use regular instead of semi-bold, just so that there's enough contrast then to sort of differentiate the bold text from the actual regular text. So I think I've decided where I'm going to put this graphical element in, and it's going to be just underneath this strap line here on the top half of the circle. So what I want to do is I really want to try and convey the nature of the product just by depicting some sort of pasture or meadow that you can see on the packaging for the tea box that they have, where you can see this sort of like rural image in the background. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough lines, but I'm going to mask it out with the shape that I pulled from the badge. It looks pretty good at this point, but it definitely needs adjusting. So to fill out these spaces, I'm going to go ahead and make the lines a bit thicker and just play around with the positioning a little bit. So I'm actually really digging that. I think it fills the space really nicely, and it also breaks up the text quite well. So I'm adding in this Tailors of Harrogate text now, and I think I'm going to add it on top of the word Yorkshire, or on each end. So it'll be like Tailors of and then Harrogate. And I think on the current logo it is quite prominent, but I don't really think it needs to be sort of that prominent on this logo. So it can be quite small, and I want to keep it within that symmetrical kind of lockup that I'm going for. So again, I'm just finding a version of this font that will work in a smaller text size, and if it's too bold then it'll become too difficult to read, and vice versa. And because I'm sitting it on top of the word Yorkshire, which is kind of like the main bit of text because that's the name of the company, I don't want it to clash with that either. So I've got this other line of text that I want to use that's going to be much better placed around the top of the badge, but I don't really have a lot of space to work with now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down the since date and put it somewhere else. So when I think of Yorkshire and Yorkshire tea, I think of an immense sense of pride and dignity, and I think Yorkshire people tend to have like this real sort of vigorous devotion to where they've come from. So in order to kind of encapsulate all that kind of stuff, I think it'd be really cool to add in this phrase that is God's own country. It's kind of used by Yorkshire people to describe Yorkshire as a place that is favoured by God. So I think that's quite cool, and there is a bit of debate as to whether it is county or country, but I'm going to use the country version just because I feel that it has like a bigger impact. So I've tried to put the sin state in a few different places now, mainly in the Yorkshire text, but I feel like it throws the balance off too much. So instead I've put it in the space between Yorkshire and T, and I feel like it aligns with everything now. The last thing I'm going to do is just to round out all the corners of the text. I think this adds a nice softer feel, and it also creates a few imperfections in the smaller text, which I quite like. So moving on to the secondary logo now, I'm going to take that meadow or pasture that I made earlier for the main badge logo, and I'm going to take that along with the text Yorkshire T to make the secondary logo. I want to put this in another sort of shape or badge, so I'm going to make this like mini badge shape. So I'm going to use the shape of the text, and then I'm going to use these lines here so I can offset it to give it some space. So I've just pulled in the Yorkshire Tea packaging for their tea box, and I really want to sample some of these colours. So the primary colour of this brand is sort of like this red colour, and I really want to keep that, but ultimately I want to keep this palette really simple. So I've just about finished with the Yorkshire Tea redesign now, and yeah, I'm super happy with it. I don't think it's a million miles away from the current branding, but I do feel like I have revamped it and modernized it a little bit. So yeah, I put together a couple of mock-ups for you guys to take a look at that's going to compare what I've done to the current branding. So we'll take a look at them now, and then we'll move on to the Costa redesign. So it is now the following evening. I got really tired after doing the Yorkshire Tea redesign, and I just couldn't do any more. But yeah, we're back, and you'll be pleased to know that I actually remembered to press the screen recording button on my recording software this time, so we're off to a good start. So before I get into redesigning this Costa logo, I want to quickly show you guys their logo evolution. I just think it's quite interesting. So they've rebranded a total of once since 1971, and obviously this is their current logo, which I showed you in the intro. But the more interesting bit is their original logo, which is this peculiar little thing here. And yeah, it's got this like sombrero hat on top of this coffee bean, which has replaced the O. It's quite bad, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm just wondering what the connection is between the sombrero hat and Costa, because I know that the founders of Costa are Italian, so I don't know. If you guys know what the connection is there, then let me know in the comments. But yeah, I thought I'd quickly show you this, because even though I don't really like it, I'm definitely going to bring in that sort of character element into my rebrand. I feel like this is a little bit boring and stagnant, so as much as I'm not keen on this, I appreciate the effort. So to start this one off, I have gone and got my font sorted. So one thing I do like to do in terms of fonts is, rather than always just going to the internet and going on font sites, which I could spend hours on searching for the right font, I like to just go through the library that I've already got and kind of see if there's anything that I haven't used yet that I think might suit the kind of vibe that I'm going for. And luckily enough, I did find one called Polino or Poleno, whichever it's called. And I have not used this font yet for anything, so we're going to go with this one because I think it's going to really suit the vibe that I'm going for. And just a quick FYI, this one is available on Adobe Fonts. So the main thing that I'm trying to sort of aim for with this one is to kind of distance it from that corporate feeling that they've already got with their current sort of branding. I do think we could add a lot more character to it. So now that I've got this font sorted, I want to go in and tweak it a little bit and sort of make it a bit more custom. So with any branding project, this is a great way of making your brand stand out and also making a more tailored look to whatever business that you're working on. So with that being said, the first tweak that I'm going to make is with the O. So the obvious thing that I could do is sort of make this into a coffee bean, but I'd rather die than do that. So I want to take a slightly different approach for this, and I want to take it even further back than when it's been harvested. So I want to incorporate a coffee seed. So I've got a little website up right now that's going to tell me a little bit about the coffee bean or the seeds. So when coffee is picked from the coffee plant, it's in the form of red or purple cherries. So I'll put a little picture up here somewhere for you guys to look at. And they grow alongside these green waxy leaves on the branch of the trees, and then the cherries are the actual fruits of the plant. So after it flowers, it takes almost a full year for a cherry to mature, ready for harvesting, and around 5 years for a coffee plant to reach full production capacity after it's planted. So inside the cherries are where you'll find the actual coffee beans or the seeds, and they are split into two halves, or like two pods. So that's where you find basically your coffee beans, and then they get roasted and so on. So yeah, it's not going to be too detailed. It's going to be really, really simple, and I'm going to try and sort of depict it in the most simple way that I can. But yeah, there's a little bit of coffee trivia for you guys there. I'm presuming that you didn't expect to find out a little bit more about coffee today, but there you go. So I'm going to put the secondary text under the word Costa, just like it is in the original, but I'm going to add a bit more tracking to it. So I think I'll leave it there. Again, it's not a million miles away from the original in terms of layout, but I think this has a ton more personality and character. Now onto the submark. I think it's going to make a lot of sense to take that custom O that I've made and add a bit more to it. So with coffee being grown in more tropical climates, and with Costa actually sourcing their beans from places like Brazil and Ethiopia, I felt like it was fitting to take the O and add these lines behind it to represent the sunny and hot climates. I just couldn't help myself, so I actually made another version of the logo, which is sort of a combination of the main logo and the submark. And I actually prefer this as the main logo because it pulls everything together and is a little bit more interesting. So colour wise, I am adopting the same approach as the Yorkshire tea redesign, in that I'm going to sample some of the colours that the branding already has. So the main colour is going to be this maroon light colour, and I've also got an off-white and a really dark shade of that maroon colour, which isn't going to hurt. I did sample a couple more colours, but to be honest, for the stuff that I've created, I think that would be a bit too much. So here's the finished logo and submark. I'm not entirely certain on the colour combinations, but I do think it works. Nevertheless though, I'm pretty happy with what came out, so let's take a look at this in context with some mock-ups. So this has been a lot of fun to make. I may do some more redesign videos in the future. Leave a comment down below to let me know which logos you'd like to see me redesign. Also, while you're down there, let me know which redesign you preferred out of the two that I made today. And yeah, I know this has been a bit of a longer video, so thank you all for sticking with me up to this point, and I will see you all in the next one.